This is your World War III update. So, Donald Trump just announced that they're going to start nuclear testing once again. Let me first, in its completion, read you the tweet that he released just a half an hour before meeting Xi Jinping and the Chinese delegation. Because even I was surprised by this, even though I told you it was going to happen for the past year, that Donald Trump was going to recommence nuclear testing, and boy, is it going to be a spectacle. There's going to be people outside selling popcorn with beer hats. It is going to be like a scene out of Idiocracy. There's a lot of news to cover today, but let's read this tweet, and then I'm going to break it down. The United States has more nuclear weapons than any other country. This was accomplished, including a complete update and renovation of existing weapons during my first term in office. Because of the tremendous destructive power, I hated to do it, but I had no choice. Russia is second. China is a distant third. But it will be even with us within 5 years. Because of other countries' testing programs, I've instructed the Department of War to start testing our nuclear weapons on an equal basis. The process will begin immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. Now, here's what everybody has forgotten. 3 weeks ago, I told you in a video that Vladimir Putin told us this very thing. Remember, he said it, and it was in a very intentional statement. But it was said in such a way that it was kind of brushed off by the majority of analysts. He distinctly said that we know that certain nations are getting ready to do nuclear weapons tests. Not the subcritical stuff that the U.S. has been doing for the longest time. Not the platform delivery systems that the U.S. has been doing. Nuclear tests. Big fuck you nuclear explosions, okay? Putin said this 3 weeks ago, which tells you that the Russian intelligence is quite good if they knew exactly what Donald Trump was going to say today. Now, the question is one of timing, and what does Donald Trump actually mean by this? And why is it that on the same day, and in the run-up to all this, I'm asking silly questions for those of you who follow the channel. The Pentagon has announced that they're establishing a quick reaction guard unit in every U.S. state and territory by January to swiftly respond to riots and civil unrest, according to the Wall Street Journal. Now, you might be asking yourself, why is the Kremlin completely surrounded and saturated with multi-layered air defense? Now they're even deploying the reserves and the military in the streets. You have to ask yourself, why has Vladimir Putin ordered reserves to all the critical infrastructural nodes throughout Russia? Why is the National Guard and why is there military in the streets of the United States with machine guns, but the underlying roots of the problem never addressed? Why are they about to do some kind of social experiment this weekend with the lack of food stamps or EBT or whatever they euphemistically call it nowadays? I got text messages. People are saying the soldiers are worried they're not going to get paid. Don't worry. You're going to get paid. Because if they don't, it's pitchforks on the front lawn of the White House. And they don't want that. The first people getting paid are the soldiers. Don't worry, you got a hell of a lot of job security. The first thing you need to understand with what Trump is saying here is he's basically saying that the U.S. has not been abiding by the New START treaty. Okay? And now what this means, when he says the United States has more nuclear weapons than any other country, right off the hop, that's factually incorrect, at least if we're being super technical about it. Because the Russians, at least on paper, have more nuclear weapons than the United States by like a few dozen or 100 or something like that. Not a lot, quantitatively speaking. But Trump is saying no, and this is not just a slip of the tongue, not the Freudian sense anyways. It is something that he stated multiple times. I think this is the third time I've heard him say that the U.S. has more nuclear weapons than the Russians. Now, is he talking about weapons that are deployed? I don't know if that's what he means. I don't think so. I think he's talking about the actual amount of nuclear warheads. And if that is the case, that means that the U.S. is doing things that are in defiance of the nuclear treaty, and he just admitted it. That essentially means that all of these nuclear doctrines, all of these past treaties about how we're not weaponizing space, and you know, when you hear the controversy that Vladimir Putin brings up about we're worried the United States wants to weaponize space, you can pretty much take it to the bank. They're already doing it, right? And so that's a huge statement because on paper, the Russians are supposed to have the most amount of nuclear weapons. Now, Trump also stated that they did a complete update and renovation of existing weapons during his first term in office. I'm not sure what the extent of that really entails. I know that they're getting ready to do a complete overhaul of the entire system, which is going to cost probably many trillions of dollars. But this is very telling because the point of disclosing nuclear weapons like the Russians are doing, the Burevestnik, the Orezhnik, the Poseidon, the Kinzhal, the Zircon, all of these new delivery platforms, is deterrence. If you are building nuclear weapons in secret, then they are not for deterrence. They are for a first strike, a decapitation weapon. Now, if the Russians know that we have that or that we haven't fully disclosed, because right now you can effectively render any sort of nuclear agreement, any nuclear doctrine. People say, oh, we have a no first strike policy. Really? I mean, think about the violations of the Geneva Convention in a little tiny place like Gaza. You don't think they're going to break the law? You think these people are going to be beholden to some international law if it means that our entire existence depends on it? Not for a hot second. I mean, that is the stupidest idea. We have a policy on how we're going to use our nuclear weapons. The policy is we're going to try to hook or by crook survive. Nothing these people say is true. Absolutely nothing. There's a movie that came out on Netflix. I'm going to be doing a review. I can't remember what it's called, but it's all about, you know, a nuclear missile gets launched and they're going through the whole process of deliberation and the protocols they have to follow, showing how they're all a bunch of bumbling idiots. There's a secret message in that film that nobody is talking about. There's a subtext there, and I'm gonna do a deep dive into it. But they're trying to tell you something, okay? And not many people are going to get it. They're setting you up for something, okay? Anyways, more on that in a future video. They're going to do a nuclear test, and it is going to be something, it is going to be a spectacle, man. You know, Trump is going to completely turn this on its head. And you're going to have people, you know, selling concessions, you know, people with the lawn chairs. It's going to be that. It's going to be like the moon landing, but the idiocracy version of that. And it's going to be the biggest explosion ever. It's going to be beautiful, big explosion. And it's all going to be for the purpose of peace. Because of the tremendous destructive power, I hated to do it, but I had no choice. Russia is second. China is a distant third. This is just a half an hour before he went to meet the Chinese delegation. Okay? And this is just a day after China's arch enemy, Japan, was pledged more conventional weapons that they will use to threaten the Chinese with, that will be made with the rare earth minerals that Trump is trying to get from the Chinese. So you could just tell at the first encounter of Xi Jinping with Donald Trump the complete and utter disdain the Chinese have for Donald Trump. It's the look that a person who is well disciplined and takes care of their kids and has standards and don't let their kids run riot and cause a ruckus and be disruptive and unruly. The look of a person who is looking at one of these parents who just lets their incorrigible children run wild at everybody else's expense. You're just looking at them like, you motherfucker. Take control of your damn kids, right? This is how the Chinese delegation looks at Donald Trump. Because they see through all of the theatrics and Donald Trump lavishing and cajoling them with all kinds of flattery. It just doesn't work. People are tired of it. And we're only in, what would the equivalent be, the second inning? Or if you're Jays and Dodgers in game 3, like the, what would it be, is it game 2, game 3? I can't remember. Maybe we're in the 4th inning or the 5th inning because it's going to be an 18-inning ball game. We're just in the beginning. And the Chinese, they're just apathetic now. Okay? So when Donald Trump sends out a message like this beforehand, in response to the Russians talking about the Burevestnik and the nuclear-powered cruise missile, as well today as the Poseidon, claiming that the Poseidon is also ready to go. Now, people are misinterpreting these weapons. The nuclear-powered cruise missile is a first-strike weapon of the ultimate sort. The Poseidon nuclear missile, the submersible torpedo, whatever you call it, is drone, I guess you call it a drone, is also a first-strike weapon. Because both of these are very impossible to detect, and unlike an ICBM, and I'm not a technical expert on this, but I know this much, an ICBM can be detected immediately when it's launched. Cruise missiles, not so much, especially one that can circumnavigate the planet several times and only be used at the exact right moment. Now, what the Russians are doing here is they're building all of these first strike weapons, but they are showing their cards for the sake of deterrence. The United States, if they have something that they're not disclosing, the Russians know that that is solely for the purpose of decapitation, because the whole point of having these types of weapon systems is to deter your adversary from wanting to use theirs by showing that you have that capability. And the hope is in showing that you can do these things, like the Russians are showing their cards, that would cause people to back down. What are we doing? We're about to do nuclear testing by the Department of War, not using the art of war at all. Now, I have instructed the Department of War to start testing our nuclear weapons on an equal basis. The New York Times published an article probably close to 2 years ago now, talking about how they're prepping all of the areas in all the respective countries, the superpowers, China, Russia, the United States. They're prepping the testing grounds, and this is confirmed by satellite, to do nuclear tests. He's not talking about the subcritical stuff that the U.S. has already been doing for some time. That's not even news. And what really caught my attention was the fact that this process will begin immediately, because we know the New START treaty completely expires in February of 2026. Not that it matters anyways. February 2026 is also when the Tomahawk missiles are supposed to be delivered to Germany. A lot of people forgot about that. Germany is host to U.S. nuclear weapons. Okay? The talk about the Tomahawks extends far beyond Ukraine. This is a much bigger thing related to the INF Treaty that Trump backed out of years ago. I'm not going to get into the history of it, but I think you get the point. Now, one could attempt to deflate this statement by Donald Trump by picking away at the semantics of it, right? And talk about what it means to be testing our nuclear weapons on an equal basis. Is he talking about nuclear platforms? I don't think so, because again, the United States tests its nuclear platforms quite regularly. I believe they fire off a couple Minutemen a year, if I'm not mistaken. So something big is brewing here, guys. And we are really straddling the line of nuclear brinkmanship in a way that we never have before. And we are closer to nuclear war than we ever have been in history. And this guy's talking about a peace prize. And the delusional people following this guy will follow him to the end. The people, I know the majority of people didn't vote for this, but you're sticking it out because you believe it's the lesser of two evils. But eventually, it's going to become popular to criticize this idea of doing nuclear testing that Nate was saying was going to happen when Trump got elected. I distinctly said they're going to do a nuclear test. Now, at the time, I didn't quite think too deeply about how it would be received by the public, but now I know it's going to be really cool. It's going to be really awesome. Nukes are going to be in again. Just you watch. Just you watch. It's going to be hip. All of this a day after the Belgian defense minister, Belgium of all places, said the following: NATO will wipe Moscow off the map if Putin attacks the alliance. The Belgian defense minister, Theo Franken, stated that if Putin uses nuclear or even conventional weapons against NATO countries, the response would be devastating. The alliance would erase Moscow from the face of the earth. And you wonder why Moscow is littered with air defense and they're deploying their own version of the National Guard to all the oblasts to protect the critical infrastructure after Trump and Ukraine. And yes, I said Trump and Ukraine. Stop saying Ukraine and Zelensky. It's Trump. It's the deep state, whatever you want to call it. It's anything but these Ukrainian puppets who tried to take out Russia's nuclear triad in Operation Spiderweb. His remark was in response to Russian threats over potential deliveries of Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. Isn't it obvious at this point? I was talking to somebody today, somebody you probably haven't heard of, and we're going to be releasing the interview. They actually came in studio for this one. This person's been around the world. They've seen the darkest parts of human nature. And they told me that when the shit hits the fan in North America, it is going to be much darker than anywhere else in the world. The predilections that some people have and the perversions in this society, human trafficking being one of them, of which this society, apparently, I didn't know this, are the main perpetrators of human trafficking, or consumers, I should say. The horrors that are going to be unleashed when the lights go out is going to really catch a lot of people off guard. Because we've conditioned ourselves to think that we are so ethical. We are so nice. We're such nice people. But there's darkness lurking under the surface that is going to be unmasked when the shit hits the fan. And myself, as a person who's been calling this game to a T, I should add, and I will say so unabashedly, because I'm not trying to gloat. Obviously, this is not something I even want to be right about, but it's just a fact. I've been warning you about this since day one, when a lot of people, for political reasons or otherwise, I've been giving you a real politic window into this whole situation. And really, if you can strip down the politics and the ideology and the religion out of it, you can pretty much see clear as day. And this is why the Chinese look at Trump in the way they do, because they're looking at America's actions, not their words. And my advice to people would be start looking at their actions and not their words. My own personal experience with this is that I am starting to believe that there is a force that's moving me in the direction that I need to be moved into. And part of the reason why I'm closing this store, it's just a hunch. It's just a feeling. It's time to close up shop, because I need to focus on this. I need to focus all of my attention now, more than ever, on getting this information out there and trying to inform more people, focusing on the skill building, focusing on the community building, focusing on my own family, and really just trying to get the most out of every day. And the store is also a liability. I feel as though every step of this, ever since COVID, prior to COVID even, I've been on this path, and I'm not trying to be overly religious, and because I'm not religious, but sometimes you just get these signs that you're where you're supposed to be, and that's why we're clearing out the warehouse. And I initially started that project because I wanted to do something good for the community. I wanted to have a business, of course, but I always built that business on getting people what they need and getting people good quality stuff, because there's a lot of scams out there. Anyways, it turned into a situation where I had hired people, and when you hire people, of course, they need to work. And so what started off as something that I was just doing on the side then turned into a business. And so we kept bringing in more and more products. And the more products you bring in, the more people you hire, and then you have to kind of keep them working, right? And I never did this to sell people stuff. Like, I've always kind of dreamt of having a prepping store, because I just thought that would be a cool idea, because I love the gear. I love the whole lifestyle of it. But it turned into a vector for a criticism that was just, not constructive. And this is why we're liquidating the warehouse, and I'm shutting down the store effectively in terms of facilitating the logistical end of it. We'll still be having affiliate, but it's not going to be something that I focus on. It's going to be a completely passive thing where I drop a link in there, and if you want to support the channel, you can. But I'm telling you guys right now, I've missed an opportunity recently on a property that really was a property I regret not locking in. And in fact, it's happened a couple times. Me and my buddy Dean over at Arcopia, we went and we looked at a deuce and a half. And these things are very rare in Canada, okay? And I knew I should have locked that deal in. Like, it was $10,000, 1966, multi-fuel, had a PTO shaft that was fully functional, had spare tires. This thing looked like a piece of shit, but boy, it ran. And that thing ain't not running. At 40,000 miles, I guess it probably had miles as opposed to kilometers. And I told the guy, okay, we're going to come at 1:30. And I was thinking to myself, man, I should just lock in. I should say I'm going to buy it. But I was reluctant. Even though it looked good, it all checked all the boxes. Dean was like, man, you should buy it. You should buy it. The fucker sold it 45 minutes before we arrived. So in the span of a month, I lost my dream property because I was reluctant. I thought about it too much, even though I did immense amounts of research. I knew it was a good deal. Dean knows diesel engines like the back of his hand. He told me it was a good deal. I didn't listen. Okay? We're liquidating this warehouse at 30% off. And I can guarantee you, from the bottom of my heart, you are never going to get deals like you are on CanadianPreparedness.com right now. I mean, this is it. This is it. Okay? I just want it gone so I can focus on what we need to focus on, because we're really getting down to crunch time. They're talking about rapid reaction forces in every state. People aren't getting their food stamps. They're about to do some social experiment with that. And Russia is mirroring this. They're going to start doing nuclear testing. Like, wake the fuck up, man. Who am I, for the one person that YouTube impresses this content upon that hasn't heard me say anything before? It's happening, guys. It's really happening. It's so freaking surreal, isn't it? To think that it's probably going to happen. And you got the markets just teetering at all-time highs, which makes no sense because they're laying off all kinds of workers. And you know that has to come back down to reality at some point, but what's that going to look like at this point in time? Something really, really bad is about to happen. And I don't know, it seems like it's going to be a nuclear war. But there's going to be things in the run-up to that. Because it's never so cut and dry and delivered in the period of time that we think it is going to be. Because we've been so conditioned and have short attention spans by TikTok, which is disallowed in China for a reason, we expect that everything is just going to be quick. And we get impatient, even with the end of the world. And the timelines are getting more and more shorter. Like, eventually, you're not even going to go grocery shopping anymore. Everything will just be delivered. The just-in-time delivery system on steroids, if we get that far. It's pretty much already there for most people. You're not going to have enough money to afford a home, a domicile that is bigger than a closet, thus storing anything or owning anything is going to be out of the question. So you're going to have everything delivered. There's going to be drones flying everywhere, delivering everybody's daily ration just to keep you alive one more day, to keep it going, right? And this is why you need to appreciate every day. Okay, when the shit does hit the fan, nobody's going to be saying to themselves, man, Nate was 3 years late or 3 years early or whatever, right? Nobody's going to say, nobody's going to look back and be like, man, I wish it had happened sooner. Because of all the things I'm doing right now, I want another year. I want another 5 years. If we're really talking about a dog-eat-dog, cutthroat, collapse of civilization as we know it scenario, where the worst of the worst that has been suppressed by this phony system, when that darkness comes out of people, when the lights go out, you're going to wish you've been prepping for years and years and years. I seen a video with Wrangler Star the other day, and I wanted to do a response to it. I believe he was being very sincere in the video. So I'm not critiquing him for his point of view that he was trying to get across in the video, because I can understand it. There's a lot of people, the point of the video was, I just want shit to hit the fan because I'm sick of this, right? People are just, really, I think it's more of a disgust with the way we're all living, and we're all guilty to a certain extent, because we've just had it too good for too long. We've become very gluttonous. And the point he was making in that video was that you just can't take it the way that everything is so distorted from the way it should be. And for everybody, that's going to be different because we all come from a different value system. But I think generally within this subculture, we agree on traditional kind of values as it's commonly understood. And we see that we're getting farther and farther from that. And that gets frustrating. And a lot of people are just like, man, you know, I'm working nonstop in this unfulfilling job. And it's not really the job that's unfulfilling. It's that you have no community because we're all isolated, alienated from one another in the concrete jungle. And so this is why, you know, people in less developed countries are generally happier people because they have each other, they have their families and things of that nature. What I'm saying is, guys, every day that it doesn't happen is a blessing, okay? And I can't quite articulate what I'm feeling today because it's been a combination of this news from Trump. We have a very valued staff member who has left us today, and so that's hard. And I had a very unexpected interview that I conducted with somebody today who completely caught me off guard. It wasn't what I was expecting it to be. It was supposed to be something more along the lines of product review. But it turned out to be a deep dive into the darkest possibilities of SHTF. A combination of those three things, it's got me in a mood right now. The only silver lining is the Blue Jays may well actually do it, which doesn't mean a lick for me, but it means about 5 minutes of, yay, back to the end of the world. My friends, please, do yourself a favor. Do yourself a favor and load the boats at CanadianPreparedness.com. Because once I'm gone in this business, I'm sorry, but you're going to see that ain't nobody did it like I did it. Thanks for watching.